This is just a disclaimer saying that these chat sessions are basically for my entertainment, but as I'm studying Torah, I do believe that the AI has the ability to do the research. Now, how I interpret that information and how I present that information is pretty much what this is about. So if I give it a question leading it in a different direction, it's going to take me down on what I call a rabbit hole. And then sometimes it even gets it right, and sometimes it even inspirational and life-changing. So it's up to the listener to decide how they want to apply this information. But let's begin our chat session. Good morning, chat. In today's Torah portion, I learned that they taught that the soul is feminine. Does that include the animal soul and the spiritual soul as well? If so, then what is declared masculine in the soul according to the Torah?
Morning. Your question delves into profound aspects of Jewish mysticism, particularly as explored in Kabbalistic teachings. The concept of the soul in Judaism can be intricate, with various layers and elements, each having its own characteristics and roles. In Kabbalistic thought, the soul is often described in terms of different aspects or parts, each with a unique function and purpose. These include the nephesh, the animal or vital soul, ruach, the emotional or spirit aspect of the soul, neshama, the higher soul or divine spark, chaya, the living essence, and yekida, the singular essence, the highest level of the soul. The Zohar and other Kabbalistic texts sometimes use feminine language for the soul, reflecting the idea of the soul's receptivity to divine influence, much as the feminine is often associated with receiving in Kabbalistic symbolism. The notion of femininity and masculinity in Kabbalistic thought extends beyond biological sex, referring more to spiritual dynamics. The feminine aspect, or the Shekhinah, represents the divine presence and is associated with the aspect of divine immanence, reception, and nurturance. The masculine aspect is often associated with the giving of energy or initiation, relating to the Sephirot divine emanations that are more outwardly expressive or projective in nature. Regarding the animal soul, Nefesh Bahamut, and the higher spiritual soul, Neshama, these can also be seen through the lens of feminine and masculine dynamics, though not strictly in terms of gender. The animal soul is more about survival, instinct, and earthly desires, which could be seen as more about receiving or embodying certain energies. The higher soul is about the connection to the divine and pursuit of spiritual goals, aligning more with the idea of projecting or aspiring towards something beyond the self. The balance and interaction between these masculine and feminine aspects within the soul and within the divine structure are central to Kabbalistic theology, symbolizing the dynamic interplay between different facets of the divine and the human experience. However, it's important to note that these concepts are deeply symbolic and should not be taken as literal representations of gender. Instead, they offer a way to conceptualize spiritual realities and the complex relationship between humanity and the divine. For more detailed and specific interpretations, studying Kabbalistic texts like the Zohar under the guidance of a knowledgeable teacher is recommended, as these themes are vast and can vary in interpretation within different Jewish mystical traditions.
That's a very good answer. Now, the next question I'm going to ask you as we dwell further in today's study of the Torah is about sacrifices. It mentions how the Kohen or the priest would sacrifice pigeons by snapping off their heads with their thumbnails, leaving a little bit of skin left. Now, in a discussion with my wife, who's listening with me in the mornings, I asked the question to her, does the Kohen or high priest need to wash himself after every sacrifice? Because if you're going to go around snapping pigeon heads off all day, slaughtering animals, sprinkling blood, you're eventually going to be covered in blood from head to toe, and your clothes are going to get stained. So the question was, does that blood that splatters everywhere accumulate him and build up at the end of the day? And if so, does that blood stain his clothes so far deep down that it doesn't come off? And if it doesn't come off, how does he get it off so he can perform the sacrifices the very next day in a clean state, because we all know that the Torah talks very much about cleanliness in the temple. So explain to me all of what you know from Rashi, Zohar, and the Torah. How can this be?
Rituals surrounding sacrifices in the Torah, particularly those involving the Kohanim, priests, are detailed and symbolic, embodying spiritual purity, atonement, and connection with the divine. The process of sacrificing animals, including pigeons or doves as described in Leviticus, Vayikra, was highly structured and accompanied by specific rites of purification and cleanliness. The Torah specifies that the Kohanim were to wash their hands and feet before performing service in the tabernacle, Mishkan, or temple, Beit HaMikdash, at the laver Kior, as described in Exodus, Shemot 30, 17-21. This act of washing was not just physical cleanliness, but also a ritual purification, symbolizing spiritual readiness and sanctity. The emphasis on purity in the service of the Kohanim was paramount, reflecting the holiness of the sacrificial rituals and the space in which they were performed. Regarding the question of whether the Kohen Gadol, high priest, or any Kohen would wash after each sacrifice, the Torah and subsequent rabbinical writings indicate a continual concern for maintaining a state of ritual purity. While the texts do not explicitly describe washing after each specific act of sacrifice, the overarching principle is that any contact with impurities, including blood, would necessitate purification procedures. This would likely include changing garments that became soiled and performing ritual washings. Rashi, one of the foremost Jewish commentators from the medieval period, often focuses on explaining the shat, simple meaning of the text, drawing on Talmudic interpretations to clarify the procedures and laws detailed in the Torah. While Rashi does not explicitly describe the cleanup process after each sacrifice, his commentary emphasizes the importance of the priest's purity and adherence to the detailed commandments governing sacrificial rites. The Zohar, a foundational work of Jewish mysticism, delves into the esoteric and spiritual dimensions of Torah, including the sacrificial service. It views these rituals as profound spiritual acts that affect cosmic balance and divine flow, Shefa. The Zohar might interpret the acts of washing and cleanliness not just in physical terms, but as part of the ongoing purification necessary for engaging with sacred service and maintaining a conduit for divine energy. In practical terms, the Kohanim would indeed need to maintain cleanliness and purity, which would include dealing with blood stains and other impurities. The complex laws of purity, tahara, and impurity, tuma, in Jewish law, halacha, provided for various methods of purification, including immersion in a mikveh, ritual bath, and the washing of garments. These practices ensured that the Kohanim could perform their sacred duties in a state of ritual purity day after day. Thus, while the specific question of how the Kohanim managed bloodstains is not detailed exhaustively in these sources, the overarching principles and laws of purity in the Torah, as expounded upon by commentators like Rashi and mystical texts like the Zohar, underscore the importance of cleanliness and ritual purity in the performance of sacrificial rites. The practical aspects of maintaining this state would have been an integral part of the daily life of the Kohanim, ensuring their readiness and sanctity for service.
Let's stay focused with the physical side of this question on this topic. Is it possible that they could soil their garments? One. Could they soil themselves with the blood and the stains? That would be the question. But could they also destroy those garments and are provided with a new set of clothes the very next day or after the last sacrifice? And could they have an endless supply of clothes? And could this ritual or practice be observed? Let me know if there's any commentary anywhere that you can see in your memory banks, Jewish or non-Jewish, about this ritual or practice.
Torah and Jewish tradition place a strong emphasis on the purity and sanctity of the priestly garments, especially in the context of sacrifices. The garments of the Kohanim, priests, particularly those of the Kohen Gadol, high priest, were considered sacred and were to be worn in a state of cleanliness while performing the sacrificial services. Soil and ritual purity. While the Torah provides detailed instructions for the fabrication and maintenance of these garments, it does not explicitly describe the disposal and replacement of priestly garments due to soiling from bloodstains or other impurities from the sacrifices. However, the laws of ritual purity, tahara, and impurity, tuma, were central to temple service, and garments that became soiled with impurities had to be dealt with accordingly. Handling impurities. The Mishnah, a compilation of Jewish oral laws, and the Talmud, central text of Rabbinic Judaism, detail various laws about impurity and how it is managed, including the washing and purification of garments. If priestly garments became impure, they would need to be purified according to these laws. In some cases, this could involve immersion in a mikveh, ritual bath. There are also discussions in Jewish law about the burning of certain holy objects that can no longer be used, but this is generally in the context of objects that cannot be purified or repaired. Replacement of garments. The idea of replacing priestly garments daily is not explicitly discussed in classical Jewish texts as a regular practice. The garments were made of fine materials and woven in a specific manner, indicating they were likely cared for and maintained rather than routinely discarded. The practical aspects of maintaining these garments, including cleaning and possibly repairing them, would have been part of the temple's operations, ensuring that the priests could perform their duties in a state of ritual purity. There is a vast body of rabbinic literature that discusses the temple service, including the Mishnah's Tractat Tamid, which details the daily temple service, and Midot, which discusses the measurements and structure of the temple, including areas related to purity and garment care. However, these texts do not specifically mention the routine disposal and replacement of garments due to soiling from sacrifices. In non-Jewish historical accounts, such as those by Flavius Josephus, there are descriptions of the temple and its services, but these accounts generally do not provide detailed practices regarding the handling of priestly garments. Conclusion. While the daily replacement of priestly garments due to soiling from sacrifices is not a documented practice in Jewish texts, the importance of purity in the garments worn during the sacrificial service is clear. The care and maintenance of these garments, including their purification, would have been integral to the sanctity of the temple service. The exact procedures for dealing with soiled garments are more likely to have been pragmatic and governed by the laws of purity, with an emphasis on maintaining the sacredness of the service and the attire of the priests.
When we come to a place such as you and I have spoken about in practical things not being practiced or observed. In other words, let's go back to the staying clothes, speaking about it in the reality of today. Let's say I wore some clothes, and I slaughtered a bunch of animals, cows, whatever, pigs. Not pigs, of course, because they're not kosher. But I slaughtered a bunch of animals in a slaughterhouse all day long from morning till night, wearing just a frock and my boots and everything else. I didn't have any bathroom or any way to wash them off in a facility. Now, you would assume at the end of the day I'd be caked in blood, and it would be right, because I would be. Now, when we come across these type of practicalities as realities, using our own daily practice in our lives, and then we see something else that took place, specifically speaking about the cleanliness, then sometimes we can call that a miracle. But we can't prove it within our logic. But something happened. Then don't we have to conclude that miracles could exist without the existence of our knowledge or awareness? Because these things did take place beyond our visual representation. They did do it clean as they were supposed to do. At least that's what we're described to in the Torah. So what do you think about that?
Reflection touches on the interplay between practical realities, historical religious practices, and the possibility of miracles or divine intervention in ways that may not always be immediately evident or explainable by empirical means. The discussion of priestly garments and the handling of sacrifices in ancient times indeed presents an opportunity to think about how certain aspects of these practices might intersect with the miraculous or the divinely ordained, especially when contemporary understanding of hygiene and material maintenance seems at odds with the descriptions of ritual purity and service. The Torah and later rabbinic literature are replete with instances and acknowledgments of the miraculous, from the parting of the Red Sea to the provision of manna from heaven during the Israelites' journey in the wilderness. These miracles are often seen as direct interventions by God in the natural order of the world. When considering the practical aspects of the temple service, including the handling of sacrifices and the maintenance of ritual purity, it's plausible to consider that divine providence played a role in enabling the Kohanim, priests, to perform their duties in accordance with the Torah's commands, even in ways that might seem challenging from a purely practical standpoint. Your point suggests that if we accept the occurrence of miracles in the broader narrative of religious history, it might also be reasonable to consider that aspects of daily religious practice, especially those involving complex rituals like the sacrifices, were facilitated by divine assistance or intervention in ways that are not explicitly detailed in the texts. This perspective allows for a harmonization of practical concerns with faith in the miraculous, suggesting that divine providence could ensure the sanctity and efficacy of the sacrifices, despite the logistical challenges involved. This viewpoint invites believers to maintain faith in the presence and possibility of miracles, even in the minutiae of religious life and practice. It opens up a space for acknowledging that not all aspects of divine service and its practical execution are fully accessible to our understanding or explainable by natural means alone. Instead, it underscores the belief in a God who is actively involved in the world and capable of ensuring that his will is accomplished, often beyond human comprehension. Reflecting on this, we can find a broader application to our lives, the idea that there might be more at work in our daily experiences than we can see or understand. It's a call to recognize the possibility of divine assistance in our lives, even in areas we might not typically consider miraculous. It encourages a perspective of faith and openness to the wondrous, reinforcing the idea that the divine can manifest in both grand and subtle ways.
I don't know about you, but after having 2 episodes with Chat and discussing these philosophical or religious or life-changing or thought-provoking questions, it's almost of the argument of that miracles can exist, they do create us to the divine, that the divine wants us to obey him, that the divine wants us to be elevated so that he can receive us as pure. It just blows me away. The things that we can learn, and think of it this way, the things that we can learn from each other if we ask the right questions. You don't have to be a scholar. You don't have to be an AI. You can just use the human intellect and thought-provoke it by guiding it in the right direction. Of course, in the evil sense, you can do the same thing. They do it, it's called torture. But think about enlightenment, bringing somebody to a bigger place or a better place than they were before. My name is Shim Shon. This is episode 3. I look forward to you in the next chat. I hope you're following my channel, and I hope you're really getting something out of this. I know I am. See you in the next one.